People have asked me, how do you interpret a Kafka story? Well, I interpret them dramatically. There are many ways to interpret them. There are many intellectual formulas. You know, with most of the intellectual methods of analysis, you can pay your money and take your choice. There's a psychoanalytic theory. There's an existentialistic theory. There are theological interpretations. One type relates to Kafka and his background of Judaism. The other type is sort of high theological study that relates Kafka's modern man's the relationships between modern man and God. There are political interpretations. But I found in my reading that Kafka himself used to read his stories live in front of audiences, and very often the stories would have a profound effect on the audience. Sometimes gales of laughter would sweep through the room. And I've done some of these stories in front of live audiences, and sometimes I've gotten the same effect. There's a good deal of humor and laughter, and there are also some very strange, disassociated effects. Now, I have read that the core of Kafka's work lies not in the novels. This is just a critical opinion, that the core lies not in the novels, but in the short stories. Of course, something like that, a judgment like that, is a matter of taste almost. But if you say that the stories are important, I would say that the four most important ones are The Hunger Artist, The Hunter Gracchus, The Penal Colony, and Investigations of a Dog. Now, I've done all of them in front of live audiences. The Penal Colony doesn't come off so well with an audience, although it's hard to know why. The Hunger Artist goes very well. Lotte Lenya did a reading of that, recorded reading on a long playing record. And Investigations of a Dog, it may be a little too metaphysical and a little too complicated philosophically to be interesting to an audience. But the story I'm going to do today, The Hunter Gracchus, is one of the most powerful stories. Now, if you want an interpretation of the effect of this story, since interpretations are easy to make, you could have a neurological interpretation. You could say this story is a hippocampal story. It affects the hippocampal area. The hippocampus is a primitive brain structure deep down in the back of the brain where memories are laid in. And also at times it produces a hippocampal aura, a feeling of strangeness and detachment. And at times also, if it's damaged, it can produce what's known as a hippocampal rage, which is an awesome thing to watch. Now, when I do this story correctly, it almost seems to unwind. I never have to bother trying to remember the words, even though it is a complicated story. And people have come up to me after performances and said, "Oh, I could see the pictures in my mind." Well, if I tell this story correctly, you won't be looking at television. You won't be looking at me. You'll be looking into your own mind. Picture a European town by the sea, a stone courtyard, narrow stone streets, steep descending alleys, and stone staircases. There's a low seawall, and beyond the seawall, a flat, calm sea. Two boys were sitting on the seawall playing with dice. A man was lounging at the base of the monument in the center of the square. The monument was to some forgotten hero who was brandishing his sword out at the sea. On one side of the courtyard, a grape seller was leaning on his elbow, lounging near his scales, near his wares. On the cobblestones in front of him were crushed grape skins and grape seeds. On the other side of the courtyard, two men were sitting in front of a cafe drinking their wine. And in back, the owner of the cafe was sitting at a table quite asleep. A boat came silently across the water. There's no wind in the sails. There's no motion of the sea. The boat seems to be moved by an invisible force. none of the people in the courtyard pay any attention as the boat comes up to a stone dock and a sailor comes out on deck and throws a line around a hawser. The people pay no attention as 4 sailors come up on deck carrying what seems to be a coffin. And then a woman comes up on deck holding a child in her arms. The captain comes out in a blue coat, goes up the stone steps and motions the sailors to follow him. The sailors carry the coffin up the steps and across the courtyard to a low mustard-colored building with an ornate classical facade and fancy wrought iron grates and balconies. The building is a school. As they get to the door opens for them, and in the second-story window, a little boy, the head and shoulders of a little boy appears. They take the coffin and walk into the building, and as the door closes, a flock of doves descends and lands on the pavement in front of the building as if waiting to be fed. After a while, another person appears on the scene, coming down the slanting, dark streets, a tall man in a dark black overcoat with large, broad shoulders and a tall black stovepipe hat with crepe wound around the band. He walks with a long walking stick and the corners of his mouth turned down as if he disapproves of everything he sees. As a matter of fact, he takes the point of his stick and flicks some offal aside, and then as he goes past the fruit seller's stand, he takes the point of the stick and flicks a banana peel off of the pavement into the gutter. It's the Burgermeister of Riva. The Burgermeister of Riva went to the big wooden doors. They opened silently in front of him, and he found himself in a hallway lined by 50 little boys, 25 on each side, each boy in a little blazer, a little white shirt and a necktie, holding a candle. He walked down through the hallway and came to another door which silently opened also. This door was opened by the boatman. As he went inside, he tried to adjust his eyes to the gloom. The light from the few candles in the room served only to move the shadows around, and the boys came crowding in after him. But he gave them a look, and they got out. And then he gave the boatman a look, and the boatman got out. The Burgermeister of Riva sat down formally on a chair with his hands on the top of the cane, looking at the man in the coffin. The man's body was covered with by an ornate flowered shawl with long fringes, and he could see the man's face, a powerful black beard all grown together in a tangle with his hair, the hair wound with grape leaves. The face was so pale and still that there was no sign that the man was not dead. But as soon as the boatman went outside, the man opened his eyes and looked at the Burgermeister. "Who are you?" the man said. "I'm the Burgermeister of Riva." "Oh yes, I know. When I wake up I have to talk to people so that I know where I am. Once I get oriented and look around a little bit, then I can tell where I am." "And you're the Hunter Gracchus," the Burgermeister said. "How did you know my name?" "Last night," the Burgermeister said, "around midnight, I heard a tapping on the window." "Salvatore," my wife said. "That's my name. There's a dove outside." I looked at the window, and there was a white dove, a dove as big as a cock. I opened the window, the dove flew in, lit on my shoulder, and whispered in my ear, "Tomorrow the dead Hunter Gracchus will arrive. Welcome him in the name of the city." "Were you really a hunter?" "Oh yes, I hunted in the Black Forest. I pursued the animals, I slew them, I flayed their hides from them. I lived a perfectly happy existence, and my name was renowned." "How did you die?" "I was chasing a chamois. It was a magnificent animal. It was across a ravine, a steep rocky ravine. At the bottom of the ravine was a stream. I remember there was a wooden hill, and the chamois, the silver, white, shining chamois, was bounding up the hill with such grace. I knew that I could get it if I got the right angle, so I went towards towards the edge of the precipice, I drew back my great bow and aimed a shot. I stepped forward for just one better angle, one better shot at it, and I fell into the precipice, and I was dashed to death on the rocks below. So, I was dead. I wasn't extremely unhappy. As a matter of fact, when the time came for me to enter my death barge, I threw aside my bow and my quiver of arrows. My mind was at rest, and in a way I was happy. Unfortunately, something went wrong. The boat started off well enough, but there was some error of navigation. I blame it on the boatman. He lost his way, and since then, for 1,500 years, I've been sailing these seas without a place to land, without any place where I can stay for any length of time. And you have no part in the other world, the Burgermeister asked. I'm always on the stairs of it. I, the great Hunter Gracchus, have become a butterfly, flitting up and down the stairs of the other world, sometimes at the top, sometimes in the bottom, but mostly in the middle. Sometimes I get near the top of the stairs and I see that light shining from the gates of the other world. But then I wake up and I'm back in my chamber. I hear the waters of some warm tropical sea lapping against the old oaken planks of the ship. And that is my existence. I have no entertainment. I have no companionship. The only other object in my room is a photograph of a bushman crouching behind an ornate shield, shaking his spear at me. One sees ridiculous photographs on ships, but this is the most ridiculous. I wear, it can't be very nice to look at me, I wear a woman's shawl, an ornate flowery shawl with long fringes, and my hair and beard have quite grown together. In the morning, Julia, that's the captain's wife, brings me the morning drink of whatever land whose seacoast we happen to be passing. And that is my existence. Is there any way we can help you? The Burgermeister asked. No, there's no way you can help me. People can't help me because they don't know of me. And if they knew of me, they would not know where I could be found. And if they knew where I could be found, they would not know how to help me. Even if everyone in the world were commanded to help the Hunter Gracchus, people would go home, they would get into bed, they would pull the covers up over their shoulders and shut their windows. The whole world would be coming in for the night. The thought of helping me is a disease that must be cured by taking to one's bed. Hunter Gracchus, the Burgermeister said, will you stay with us in Riva? The Hunter Gracchus gave a wan smile by way of reply, and if by way of making some sort of emphasis, he laid his hand on the Burgermeister's knee. I do not know. I cannot say whether I will stay here or whether I will go. My ship has no rudder, and it is steered by a current that moves through the undermost waters of death.